I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. But it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Look where we are. Here, all of us, in this moment. So let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
And this is Crusher Convo.
And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. We are here to celebrate one of the best families of the Enterprise, the Crushers. And I have the honor of having senior editor and writer of Screen Rant and Star Trek expert John joining me today. Thank you, John, so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is a real honor.
I loved it. I went out to the, social media, was like, hey, who wants to join and talk about the Crushers? And you're like, me. Because the Crushers are awesome. Real fast, I already have Sarah, who showed up a little early today. Now I can't be late. And J. Marie is also early for runs. So yes. And of course, Sarah says hi. And before we dive into the Crushers, I want to go ahead and talk about my sponsor. So Cherry Tree Incorporated, where you can get Borg computers, little kitties on Borgs, or even, Klingon keyboards. They just have great stuff over there. Use the code CrusherCombo6 to get 6% off your order at mycherrytree.com and follow them on the socials at Cherry Tree Incorporated. Had to get that out there real fast. And we have Ed from My Figure Universe. Hello, LLAP. So, John, being a first-time guest, I have a question for this season, and is, what is your Trek and why?
What is my Trek? It's always going to be Deep Space Nine. TNG was my gateway drug, but Deep Space Nine was the show that made me really, really fall in love with this universe, the complexity of it, the depth of it, the potential of what kind of storytelling can be done in Star Trek beyond exploring strange new worlds, beyond meeting new life, new civilizations. Deep Space Nine was the journey within us, and exploring characters more deeply than TNG could or did with their format. And Sisko is my captain. He just is. I love all the captains for different reasons, but Sisko is the guy. He's the guy I would follow in the battle. He's the guy I'd follow into Vic's bar, or watch a baseball game with. He's the guy.
I get it. And DS9 is winning this season. It is the most from all my guests, it is the most one that people are like, DS9's my Trek, and they explain why. So that is awesome. And Ed says, my kind of Trekkie, great answer. That was also his answer as well. He loves Deep Space Nine. So yeah, guys, we're talking about the Crushers, a tribute to the Crusher family. Fun fact, Wesley is technically the only real Crusher because Beverly married into it, and then Jack the son, it's a whole complicated story. But anyways, let's go ahead and deep dive in with a clip. There are 3 separate clips all in one in this video, so hang in there. It's almost 2 minutes long, but it's well worth it. So here we go.
I guess I find him intriguing.
Seems like there's a little more to it than that.
Is this your way of asking me if I'm getting romantically involved with him?
You said it, I didn't.
My feelings towards him aren't romantic. Exactly. I mean, I know that the doctor-patient relationship can sometimes create a false sense of intimacy, but this is different. There's an almost spiritual connection. I guess I'm not making any sense, am I?
I think I understand.
I remember a time when you were so little. You basically stopped sleeping. You were afraid to. Afraid of what you'd see if you did.
Nightmares? I don't remember that.
I do. I was there, and you got through them. And whatever this is, you can get through this too. But you've got to talk to me. You're not okay. All of this stress, your father, attempts on your life. I need to know.
The universe always needs me. And I don't know how long I can stay in this reality.
Before you disappear again, I want you to meet someone. Your brother.
And of course, we're going to talk about the matriarch of the family, Beverly Crusher. And I wanted to showcase those 3 scenes because, one, there's such a different contrast between the Beverly and Wesley scene and the Beverly and Jack scene. And also just how she is with her kids. And, even at the end, we were like, yay, Wesley met Jack when he was a little boy. But this is her life. Like, her children are her life. And one of the things that I wanted to point out was just real fast is, Beverly lost her parents at a very young age. We're not sure how young. We just know that she was orphaned at a young age and raised by her grandmother. She was bullied. And that was showcased in Offspring when Data went to go ask her some questions. She said that she had a one-on-one with Wesley when he was little because he was also different and kids didn't really like him. And she knew how to, talk to him about that. And so knowing that she kind of didn't have this great upbringing, also Arvada 3, which is a planetary disaster, all this stuff, she meets Jack. She wants to become a doctor. They get married. They have Wesley, and then she's widowed by the time she's 30. So she's always had just bad luck on her side, but it never stopped her. And she ended up being what we saw, the first female CMO of the Enterprise. And she always not only took care of herself and was like determined, this is what I'm going to be, and I'm going to go for it, but she also always put her kids first. And so I wanted to ask you, what is it about Beverly in your mind that you enjoy so much that really strikes you as like, wow, she's a very interesting or, amazing character in some way?
Well, let's start with the fact that she has 2 sons of very, very different ages that she raised at different phases of her own life. And she had to be both mother and father to both of them. I mean, obviously Jack and, Wesley had Picard and some other people as kind of male role models on the Enterprise, but Beverly had to be both father and mother to him. And then Jack, of course, she raised separately away from Picard, and Jack didn't meet Picard until he was roughly an adult. Beverly, the thing about Beverly is what I think is fascinating about her is, and it's very low key. And if you track her throughout TNG and you track her into Picard and through the movies, she's a genius. And we don't really talk about how brilliant she actually is. It's very, very it's almost understated. It's almost like just a matter of fact. Let's take The Best of Both Worlds Part 2. She brought Picard's humanity. She took away all of the Borgian plans. She brought him back to humanity. And nobody really talked about it. I like how incredible that is. That is a phenomenal achievement. She should be written up in every journal. She should have won awards. She should have been, all these, she should have received all these accolades just for that one achievement alone. And she does so many things like that all throughout TNG, the movies, and Picard, where she basically saved the Federation and she got rid of all the Borgian plans for the entire Starfleet that was assimilated. She's incredible. So, but she never demands that kind of attention. She never demands the accolades. She's just the best at what she does, and she's confident about it. And she's an extraordinary character. And TNG really kind of underutilized her. And it took me rewatching it as an adult and tracking her progress as an adult to actually see. Or how remarkable she is, and but you kind of have to see it between the lines because they don't make such a big deal out of it. But that's one of the things why I think she's so great.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, because if you kind of remember, in the beginning when Wesley was there on the Enterprise, it was Wesley, Data, and Geordi, right? And Cameron from Green Shirt would call them the Geek Squad because it was like, here's the Geek Squad, right? They're coming together. Well, Wesley's gone. And who comes in? It's Beverly, and she's like all of a sudden doing stuff on Data, and she figured out all how to deal with his positronics and everything. And, what was it, the game when he was, severed from parts of his body, so he was deactivated. And Wesley's like, there's only two people that could do that, my mother and Geordi. And so, yes, she is brilliant in so many different ways. She's not only a doctor, but she's a scientist. And so, yeah, I think, and just raising her boys on her own. Like I said, she was widowed at 30 and had a 5-year-old son, raised him, and was like, hey, let's go on the Enterprise, not only for herself, but for her son, because she knew that he would learn a lot. And then, like you said, she had to raise Jack completely on her own with no help, because she was away from everybody. In the chat real fast, so Sarah's like, Jack is a Picard. Very true. But probably legally, it's probably still says Crusher unless it's Picard Crusher. I'm not sure. Sean over at Letters for Legacy says, Cisco was the most complex captain with the most nuances nemesis in Ducat. Of all of the golden era Trek, DS9's holds up best for a modern audience, which is true. When I started watching Star Trek 3 years ago, almost 4, got into TNG, got into DS9 and everything. Well, my husband never saw all of Trek. He only ever saw TNG. So because I was watching it, he's like, I'll give these shows a try. Loves DS9. Loves it. He's like, why didn't I watch this when I was a kid? I was like, I don't know. There was just something about the characters, like you were saying. It's so great to see them in Vic's Lounge and the Hollow Suites and them doing all this stuff. The baseball episode, I did a tribute episode because of Jackie Robinson. My love for the Dodgers, I was like, this is he's a Giants fan, but that's fine. I'll let it go, Cisco. But anyway, so it's funny how these captains all carry a different weight, and we could all resonate with it in some case, right? Even with Janeway or even Archer, like, absolutely love it. My cousin's in the chat. Hello, cousin. That's her new kitty. Jay Marie also said that. Oh, go ahead.
I do want to point up one little thing. So Beverly is the first female CMO. Kind of. There's a little bit of an asterisk there. Just because in Star Trek The Motion Picture, before Bones beamed on and Admiral Kirk made him the CMO, Chapel was the CMO.
Was she the CMO? I just knew she was the doctor,
so.
but I wasn't sure if she was the CMO of the Enterprise.
I wasn't sure. I mean, that's kind of like where the asterisk is, right? Like, because it wasn't clearly stated, but I was assuming that because she had that status, she was going to be, but then McCoy just took it over. But I'm not sure. So let's give it to Beverly anyway, because we just don't know.
That's an interesting little idea. I mean, it would be cool if it's Chapel, to be honest. I mean, Chapel's a cool character, right? Like, go Majel Barrett. But yes, I mean, just because of the whole taking over from the TV show aspect, right? From TOS to now TNG and everything, Beverly being the first, I guess. Yeah. But we should definitely, we'll after this, we'll start doing some research, right? You're a writer, I'm sure you do all the time. Your next article. Who's the first female CMO?
I might just do it.
Just put a little footnote there. Because of Crusher Combo, I thought of this. So Jay Marie says, nice that DS9 let a main character have a child they actually raised. Yes.
Yeah.
And also, Ed says, no lies detected.
Oh, good.
So far, we're doing good, John. And Sarah also says, Beverly is incredible. I agree 100% with you, John. I feel like the writers did her wrong, which is true, because there was just so much of Beverly that we didn't get to see. We got snippets. I mean, shoot, she was, as a CMO, she was captain in the Enterprise in Descent Part 2 when everyone was on the surface, right? Like, that's something, and that she kept stretching herself. She's like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. Let's see. I'm going to just captain a ship. No big deal.
Yeah.
So, cousin, go Dodgers. See, we're family. So Ed says, go Cubbies. Okay. Still love you, Ed. It's fine. And last but not least, It also says Bones makes mention that Chapel is an MD, and since she's on board the ship, it is logical to assume that she is. So there you go. Awesome. Okay, so going back to Beverly and having hidden talents, there was a specific thing that you wanted to highlight, and I'm going to play the clip right now.
And you say you've never done this before? Try this. Not bad.
The dancing doctor. And of course, fun fact, guys, Gates McFadden was 4.5 months pregnant in that scene. I definitely wasn't doing that at 4.5 months pregnant, I could tell you that. But why did you want to talk about her dancing abilities in Data's Day?
Well, first of all, I love that scene. I love that. First of all, how talented are both of them? You know, like how incredible was that? Just the dancing in itself. But one of the reasons why I've always loved that scene from the first time I saw it, well, however many years ago, is I love in Star Trek, especially in the TNG era, when they act like people. You know, we know they're perfect. We know they're evolved. We know they're hyper intelligent. We know they're all alphas and they're all the best at what they do. But I love it when they kind of break down that perfect Star Trek facade and you see the real person. In this case, we know Beverly. We know Gates McFadden was a choreographer. She's an incredibly talented dancer. So to be able to bleed that into Beverly Crusher and make that part of her character canonically, I love it. And I love just seeing both of them just having fun, just dancing. It's such a nice little aside. And Data's Day as a whole episode was a wonderful little aside, and away from missions and exploration and crisis, just to have a very, very personal episode about the characters. And it's such a great scene. I just wanted to shout that out because that's one of my favorite Beverly moments.
And another thing too that they showcase, that Gates is also love of theater and directed, plays, and they showed Beverly is all of a sudden had a workshop of plays on the Enterprise. Like, during our downtime, let's go do Shakespeare. Like, that was Beverly's, right. But dancing and Shakespeare, that was her thing. So I do love when they incorporate that, was it Jonathan Frakes with the trombone and
the trombone,
just different things like that was a lot of fun. Now, Sean does say in the TMP novelization, it states that Chapel was slated to be CMO, but stepped aside when Bones came on board.
They hadn't launched yet.
So they hadn't launched yet. She got pushed aside. Look at that. Darn Bones. Anyways, Sarah did ask, wasn't Gates pregnant while filming that? And then she went, laugh out loud, because I already answered the question. So anyways, and there was something else you wanted to highlight, and this is another good thing to mention. While, Beverly comes back to Picard season 3, she does all the amazing things that you were mentioning earlier, even, releasing all of the Borg, the DNA and all of the young ensigns and cadets and things like that. She becomes an admiral at the end. And I know there was a little bit of controversy, just a smidge of where they were like, but she was never a captain. She's not a part of Starfleet. Well, you know what? She was captaining that Helios pretty darn well. And she did have some captain's training. So I'm pretty sure they were like, you know what? Come back. We'll slap on a rear admiral, pin, and you're good to go.
Star Trek has always had a tradition where if you save Earth, you get a crazy reward. You can,
Except for Harry Kim.
Except for Harry Kim, right? So
they were stuff in the Delta Quadrant.
Right. So I'm clocking that. That was Beverly's crazy reward for doing everything she did at the end of Picard season 3, because she basically restored the entire Starfleet and eliminated the Borg.
what you had mentioned earlier, where she had brought Picard back to his humanity and taken out the implants and things like that. Ironically, she ends up having the first organic Borg child, which we'll talk about later. But it was just like, well, this is full circle in not a good way. But, in this sense, though, she understood it, right? She had already done what she did with Picard. She knew what she had to do with the transporter. She was so smart. Geek Squad 101 in Picard season 3, it was Geordi and Data and Beverly in the back trying to figure things out. So it made sense that they would be like, they come back, we'll promote you. We want you back at Starfleet Medical, and so
running it, right? She's running Star Trek.
She runs it, yeah. And she's like the director, so I thought that was really, really cool. In the chat real fast before I go into my next thing, Sean also says, Data's Day is the type of episode that is a prime example of why Trek needs to return to longer seasons with the character and world building. I agree.
Yeah.
And also, Ed is talking to Jay Marie. If you're having issues with your YouTube, I recommend checking for updates. Unfortunately, Jay Marie is like, she's writing one comment and like 5 are popping up. And so she's having some issues and Ed's trying to help her out. So thank you, Ed. I really appreciate it. The next thing I did want to mention, though, is about Beverly being a determined mother. Okay. I did an episode recently called Battle-Hardened Mothers, which was about Xena Warrior Princess's 30th anniversary and comparing it with Beverly. There was a lot of similarities, but I wanted to mention these 2 deleted scenes that were from Picard season 3. Some are more of an extension of a scene, so they had to cut a little bit out for timing for obvious reasons, but I felt these really highlighted Beverly as a mom.
You and I so fundamentally changed that we're willing to compromise everything. Everything that we've believed in.
All I know is that when we were on the run, every moment felt like an eternity. And to see the violence others were willing to do to take our son. Yes, I think I'm losing my compass.
I gave Wesley space, and I lost him to it. So I watched Jack closer. So close I couldn't see what was right in front of me. I let him go where his heart took him, and I followed. From planet to planet, running from something. I blamed you. But I was treating the symptoms and not the disease.
Beverly.
I'm going crazy. There must be something I can do, and I'm going to find it.
I wanted to highlight that because Beverly has lost so much in her life that her children are everything, and Wesley was everything to her, and it was so hard for her to let him go to this mysterious traveler thing. She never knew if she was ever going to see him again, and clearly she never did, except for that one time when he saw Jack as a little boy. So like she said, she's like, I lost Wesley to space, and she's like, I held on to Jack, and I held him on so hard that she didn't see what was happening. And so in that scene, she felt so guilty, like she probably felt like she failed. And like I said, this was kind of a full circle with the whole Borg thing, and not in a good way, because now her son is being drawn in by the Borg queen, and now she doesn't know what to do. She feels helpless. But that's one of the amazing things about Beverly. I believe, I want to say actually Sean might have mentioned this when we had chatted a few weeks ago, where it's, No, actually, it wasn't Sean. It was my interview with Stephen L. Sears, who had done Xena. He actually said this about Beverly, that she is the mother character. She wasn't only just the mother of her children, but she was the mother of everybody. She was caring, she was determined, she was there for you, she was nurturing, compassionate, kind, and that was what was so important to have, and I think that's why so many people gravitated towards her character. I've heard so many wonderful fan reactions to her character where they were like, she was like a surrogate mom because I didn't have one, or she was someone that I wish I had in my life because I didn't have that great of a childhood or something. It's like, you know, as much as Gates is like, you know, don't be thanking me. It's the, you know, it's just the character. I'm glad you love it, but I was like, but Gates is the one that really brought this character to life and why everyone loved her. And what is it about, you know, with Beverly as a mother? What is like that big? What is the first thing that you think of when it comes to that part of her character for you?
Yeah, it's like that nurturing side. But what it is it also ties into her character as a doctor. Like, she's the one who genuinely cares the most, you know, beyond the mission, beyond whatever the problem is. She is the one who you turn to, along with Troy, you know, from a psychiatrical point of view, when you're in trouble, you know, like physically, like obviously as a doctor, she's the one you turn to for care. And so that just kind of extrapolates into all aspects of her character, especially as a parent. And so, yeah, it's a very powerful thing because, you know, going like TOS doesn't have anything quite like that. You know, they're all adult professionals and they're all, you know, but there's no TNG was the first Star Trek that was about family. You know, the Enterprise D was a 1,000-person ship specifically because there were families aboard. And so that's kind of why I feel like the audience really latched on to TNG in a whole different way from TOS, just because we saw the Enterprise's bridge was a living room, and that was our living room, and they were our family, you know. And yeah, Picard was our dad, and Riker was our cool uncle or whatever, and you know, and Beverly was the mom, and Data was the weird little brother. So that maternal aspect is such a powerful thing. And yeah, like you know, it's sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's very subtle, but it resonates and everybody feels it. Everybody feels, like your mind feels it, your heart feels it, even if you're not recognizing it immediately. It's always there, and it's one of the powerful things about Beverly that just resonates over the generations.
That's very true. That's very true. Now, Ed says, if Beverly is an admiral for saving Earth, does that make Wesley in line for president for saving the universe? But he does it in secret. Remember,
he does it in secret. Yeah.
My cousin goes, "Wow, this personifies being a mother. It isn't easy. It's very. I might be getting my cousin to be watching the show. She's never seen Star Trek, but she might be watching it now." And Shaw says, "Where's the Emmy at?" And I was like, "Yep, exactly." There's so many amazing moments for these actors that don't get recognized for Emmys, like instantly with Cisco in Far Beyond the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. Like, yeah, they get so cheated. Jerry Maria says, I love that Beverly is into theater. Riker is a trombone player. Picard is a geek who loved to cosplay as a detective and ride horses. That is so true. I love it. But anyway, so yeah, I absolutely love it. Now, you actually had written an article about comparing. So, spoiler alert to anyone who has not seen the end of season 2 of Andor, but Bix ended up having Cassian's baby, and Cassian never knew about it. And you had said Beverly did that 2 years ago and better.
Yeah.
So
I saw that right away.
Yeah, and so you interviewed Gates as well, of course, in different articles and stuff like that, not for this specific article, but what was it about how you felt that she did it better than Bix? And is there anything, special that you wanted to share with your conversations with Gates in the past?
Let me just talk about getting to talk to Gates. I got to talk to her midway through Picard season 3, so this is like 2023. And it was my first time speaking to her, and I was just so struck by how kind she was, how smart she was, how well spoken she was. She was so pleased with the depth of characterization that Beverly was given in Picard season 3. It was like almost like the reward for waiting for so long, going through TNG, of Beverly not being fully realized, to have all this, all these meaty scenes, these powerful dramatic scenes with Patrick Stewart and with Jack and that was the Beverly. She was just so happy that was the Beverly that she always wanted to play and she always wanted the fans to see. And also, we talked a little bit about her background and her theater work, her dancing work, her choreography work. We talked about my favorite part of the thing was I asked her about the Hunt for Red October, where she shows up at the very, very beginning. She's the first wife of Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
1.25
right. Yeah.
seconds.
Yes, but she was the first Kathy Ryan. So that was really fun because I mean, gosh, I wanted to ask her that for like 20 years. So that was really awesome. So yeah, she was a fantastic interview. And then we talked a little bit about Investigates as well, because at that time, I think season 2 was about to start. And I hope it comes back. I hope she gets season 3 because her interview style is really, really great. She gets really like granular and personal, and she's a phenomenal interviewer.
Yeah, I mean, we had season 3 at the end of last year, where she talked to mostly of a lot of like the Strange New Worlds characters.
Yeah, right.
And then also she had like Doug Jones and I think I think she had not Dominic, she had Connor from Enterprise. So hopefully a season 4. I know she's still working with Nacelle Company. They're actually doing a project together. She's narrating another series of theirs, so that's going to be coming out soon. So tidbit, I just learned that over at Fanix. Yeah. So, but back for Andor, what was it that you felt similar between Bix's story and Beverly, and why do you feel that Beverly did it better?
Well, I think in both cases, if I'm trying to remember what happened in Andor, but I think Bix took her son away to kind of safeguard him from the Empire, if I remember correctly, because Cassian had to go through all these things. I just thought the motivations for Beverly leaving the Enterprise when she was pregnant made not more sense, but was richer when it was fully explored and fully explained. Her rationale and fear of Picard's many enemies targeting their son made more sense to me. And obviously, of course, there's a payoff that Andor will never get. Bix will never get is that Cassian dies at the end of Rogue One. Spoilers. So he'll never meet his child. Whereas we got the satisfaction of Jack actually getting to meet his father and Picard's life being changed fundamentally by realizing that he actually has a son. He's not alone in the universe, and he has a chance to pass on the Picard name if Jack accepts his last name.
Accepts it, yeah. Picard Crusher / Crusher. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But speaking of Crusher, let's talk about the eldest son, and we're going to dive right into Wesley with this clip.
A long time ago, I was known as Wesley Crusher, but now I am a traveler of all of space and time.
You're kidding, right?
The last time I told a joke, I inadvertently changed a century's worth of history, so I work really hard to not be misunderstood.
That's a lot.
You have no idea. My colleagues and I, we dispatch those we call supervisors to help ensure the proper flow of time. See, the universe is essentially a grand tapestry. It is flawless. It is fragile. It is exquisite. Yet it is somehow always a thread's pull away from total annihilation. A star is born, but a ship is lost. A new species thrives, but a civilization collapses. Knowing when to step in, that's the tricky part.
So here is our child prodigy, Wesley Crusher. That was the end of season 2 of Picard, which, fun fact, all that he was talking about what had happened in season 2 of Prodigy that we got 3 years later? And it's just because they were writing Prodigy at the same time as he was about to be on Picard, and so they wanted to slip that in there. So then when we did see Prodigy, it was like, oh my gosh, that's what Wesley was telling Corey at the end of season 2. So, like I said, he's the child prodigy, born of Jack and Beverly. And like I said, we've been saying Beverly, always made sure that Wesley got everything that he needed and wanted to make sure that he did everything that he enjoyed. But he, of course, had a future of becoming a traveler, which we first see in season 1 with, what was it? Where No One Has Gone Before, I believe.
Yeah,
That was the episode where the Traveler was introduced. And then there was a couple more episodes, Remember Me, and then, of course, Journey's End. How do you feel about his arc from going from, wanting to be on the Enterprise? He kind of was doing this maybe and wanting to be like his father. And that's, I kind of mentioned like fathers, stuck in his father's shadow kind of thing. But he had like this destiny of being this ultra universal galactic, helper, I guess you could say. How do you feel about that arc? Did you like that they went that route, or did you wish that he kind of was with, Starfleet and all that stuff?
In hindsight, looking at the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's no, I don't think it's a secret, and most people disagree that like the way Wesley was characterized throughout most of TNG was kind of bungled, right? Like the boy genius that could solve every problem better than the adults who were professionals who were trained for this, was always like a problematic like trope, and it really just kind of turned the audiences against Wesley like early on. Like he was, but one of the cool things about Star Trek over the generations now is that they've been able to kind of retroactively fix those things or bring the characters to a better place than they were when they started. And so in the great hindsight, in the great span of how Wesley's life turned out as a traveler, it actually makes sense. Like if you track how, as a Starfleet officer, he never quite fit, and that made sense. Like yes, if he wanted to be a Starfleet officer to be like his father, but it wasn't. There was something off about it for him, serving on a starship, and then the first duty, of course, which I think a phenomenal episode for a lot of reasons, and then becoming a traveler. To me, it makes sense, and I think it's a much better fit for him as like kind of like the guardian of the universe, basically. And I'm glad you showed that clip of him in Picard season 3, because I love that clip. Because one, I had no idea that was ever going to happen. That was a total surprise, and I was so overjoyed to see Wesley at that moment. And then him opposite Isa Briones, who is so incredibly talented. She's in the pit now, and she's phenomenal. But also, that was, to me, when I watched that scene again, I realized, like, because he was talking about the stuff in Prodigy, which dealt with the multiverse in season 2, that was actually the gateway of solidifying Star Trek as a multiverse. Like, there's always been the mirror universe, there was the Kelvin timeline, but it never felt like a cohesive thing. Whereas to me, Wesley opened up the idea that Star Trek is a multiverse. It's a vast, diverse thing, and like he's kind of like the guy, like, who holds it all together, which I think is a phenomenal destiny for him, better than any starship captain or any type of Starfleet destiny that could have been afforded to him. So overall, like, I love that he's a traveler, and I wish we could just see a show about him being a traveler. I wish we could see like a Quantum Leap style multiversal show of him running around the multiverse, meeting all kinds of alt versions of people, his friends, his parents, people he's never met before, characters from all kinds of shows, and like solving problems. Like that would be an incredible Star Trek show. That would like be mind blowing.
Absolutely. Shout out to Humanist Trek, who they're watching TNG right now, and they had just seen Pen Pals. I was listening to their podcast, and I believe it was Allie that had mentioned, people had a problem with Wesley being the smart one, making the adults look dumb, right? Even though they were the professionals. Her thought, and I thought this was brilliant, so shout out to Allie. She said that they were busy. She says the adults were busy, right? They were the professionals. They were always doing something and stuff. And because Wesley was just there, he caught things that they missed because they were busy. It wasn't that they were slacking. It was just that they were concentrating on other things. And he just happened to find something and be like, hey guys, this is a, and I thought, that's kind of true. Like, that's kind of also the whole point of having a team, because you can't just put everything on one person, because they might miss something. They're too busy. Something might happen. And because they were doing different things on the Enterprise, he was able to notice things that they had just missed because they were doing other things and other important things. So I liked her way of putting it that way, because then it made it like They're not idiots. They were just busy. And he wasn't busy. He wasn't working. He was just there, and he just happened to notice it and then help them fix it because he knew what they were dealing with. So again, shout out to Humanist Trek, because I thought that was brilliant.
It's actually really clever. Yeah, that's spot on.
I thought that totally spot on. Just checking the chat here. J. Marie did say that those scenes that I had shown, the deleted scenes of Beverly, she said she feels that they should have kept that in. And Sarah says, still have a headcanon that Wes is really Picard's son, which was a whole thing back in the 90s. Yep. Everyone was all like, is it though? You know, we'll talk a little about Picard and Jack R. Crusher a little bit. And Sarah goes, ooh, John and Q can be in it. Your little Traveler show that you were just talking about. So
yeah.
But, you know, one thing about Wesley, it was so good to know that he saw Jack and Beverly for a minute. But the sad part is because he has this universal job now, he doesn't have time for his mother. But I did like the line in Prodigy where she says, for a time traveler, I wish he had time to see his mother. And I was like, ooh, stab in the heart, but so true. Totally get it. Now, you have had the honor of talking with Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
So, so just give us a little, tidbit of how that was like.
Yeah. The first time I talked to Will was a phone interview for it was a Facebook game or an online game that he hosted. And that had a bit of a chaotic start because we couldn't get the Zoom working right. Because, this is during the pandemic in the early days of Zoom. And we were still all trying to figure out how this worked. But it was really, really great to talk to him because, he's such an enthusiastic geek. And, and he's a wealth of knowledge about all these wonderful, nerdy things, especially Star Trek. And then I finally get to meet him face to face in person on the red carpet for Picard season 3, which I worked in LA. So that was really great to actually get to talk to him. And I told him the truth, which is that, when I started getting interviews for Screen Rant, I didn't know how to do interviews. I had never done it before. So he was one of the people I looked at from the ready room of how he talked to people that I kind of modeled my own style after, because I love the enthusiasm. I love the depth of knowledge, but I also love that he is personable and he tries to connect with whoever he's talking to on a very human level. And it's not just, I have a question for you, answer it. So, and I forgot what he said. He was so kind. I told him basically I modeled myself after you, and he said, "Oh, then you modeled yourself after whoever I modeled myself after." So I forgot who. I wish I remembered who that was. He said, but yeah, we had a nice laugh about that. He's a tremendous guy.
That's awesome. I kind of modeled myself after Gates. I like how Gates talks to her, because she doesn't like to have really interviews, like you said, just here's a question, answer it. It's a conversation, right? Let's have a conversation about this particular topic, and I'm interested about this, and let's just talk. And I think that's what's so great about how she, handles and does her podcast that way, because it's just easy on the ear, really nice to hear. And so I'm all like, oh, that's something I should try. I'm talking about Star Trek, but let's figure it out. Especially because even if I don't have a guest, I can, fall on my lovely listeners who chime in on the chat and, just have a conversation and kind of go from there. So I totally understand where you're coming from. But Will is amazing in the Ready Room. So sad that they didn't bring it back. I feel like it would have been great for him to do this last season of Strange New Worlds. I would have loved to see him do it with, Section 31 and even Starfleet Academy that's coming. Little bummed, not gonna lie, a little bummed about that. But Wesley, of course, is off saving the universe. And while all of that was happening, he had a little brother he didn't know about till years later. So here is a clip about Jack.
How did you survive it?
I didn't.
Right, the positronics. A new, fully synth prototype body. I don't suppose you got another one in my size, have you?
I lived with Iremodic syndrome for decades. Fate is a way of surprising us. And you're young, Jack.
If only you were as good at passing on genetics as you are wisdom. For so long, my mother thought to protect me from you. shields me from being collateral damage in the life of Jean-Luc Picard.
Irony is,
Maybe I was doomed before I was even born.
And there's the young son, Jack Crusher, who we all were surprised, but not too surprised. I mean, we knew Beverly had a secret, and I was like, please let it be a secret child. I'm a soap opera fan. I was like, just let it be a secret child. And I was not disappointed. So, the style between the boys, very different.
Yep.
Between Wesley and Jack. Totally two different, personalities, okay? It's because they grew up differently, right? Mm-hmm. There was we had mentioned earlier, Wesley did have his father for the first 5 years. Yes, he had his mother, but he did have those father figures on the Enterprise. He was a cadet. He had other, friends and all that stuff. Jack didn't. And as he got older, he understood why, and like it said in the clip, my mother tried to shield me from the collateral damage of being the son of Jean-Luc Picard, but, there was a lot where he felt lonely, and that was kind of the arc in season 3, where he always felt there was something different about him. He never understood why. He loved his mother, but there was just something missing. But he cared about her. Like, that was super, super important. He was risking his own life trying to save hers. I'm sure Beverly, when she got shot, she was like, leave me behind, like, forget it. I need you to save yourself. And he was like, no. So there was a very, very special mother-son bond that I don't think that Beverly had with Wesley just because of the circumstances. Right. But of course, with season 3 of Picard, we find out, oh yeah, not only are you the secret son of Jean-Luc Picard, but you're also a Borg, which that was a surprise. It was actually a cool surprise where they twisted that whole Irumodic syndrome, something on your prowl to love, like going back from all good things to now. It was like, nice twist, Terry Metalis. I like what you did there, right? And then, of course, like I said, it would be Beverly. Like, poor Beverly can't have a child that doesn't have some kind of universal stake. She had a traveler and a Borg. Yeah. And then even a girl who was on the Enterprise, which was Amanda, who ended up being a Q. Like, she can't catch a break. Poor woman. But you wanted to mention these scenes that Jack had with Picard in the 10 forward, holodeck scenario of season 3. I wanted to showcase that just because, Jack thought he was dying, but of course it was a Borg DNA. So what was it about these scenes between Jack and Picard and all the 10 forward scenes that you loved so much?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, Ed Spaliers is such a great, great actor, and obviously Patrick Stewart is legendary. He's fantastic. So, and the two of them together, I thought they had amazing chemistry. I completely bought the father-son, or, the distance between father and son, but also like the careful trying to connect. They were both trying to connect, but also careful about it, like very guarded, but trying to break their own walls down and to let the other person in. And that scene in 10 forward juxtaposed against the flashbacks when Jack was in the bar and Picard was being inundated with Starfleet cadets, and he was regaling them with stories while trying to eat his fish and chips, and Jack was watching from afar, and he couldn't get in there. It's such great writing, such great performances, such great directing. I think Jonathan Frakes did that episode. That's episode 4. I think that was No Win Scenario. So yeah, it's phenomenal. It's what we watch Star Trek for. We watch Star Trek to really fall for these characters, to watch these characters be pushed to new dimensions and to discover new things about themselves, and to relate in all these new ways, and it just makes us love them more. And so that was I was iffy on Jack for the first 3 episodes until that scene with Picard, when I was like, okay, yeah, I believe this now. I believe that you're his son, and I want you guys to have a relationship. I want you guys to be a family. And so, that's how it turned out.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, because Jack had this hidden Borg DNA, he was definitely felt different and definitely had struggles and stuff, but he was very smart. Clearly has a criminal record. So because he had to do some not so legal things to, get medical supplies and help out his mother. But even though he wasn't a doctor, he wasn't any of those things, he helped his mom. He learned it. It was kind of like a good, parallel to Beverly learning roots and herbs from Felisa when they were on Aveda 3 and stuff like that. She was helping her grandmother with this stuff, which made her want to become a doctor, right? So, and that Tenford scene where you're saying, the cadets were all around him and Jack couldn't get to him and stuff like that. That was a moment that was heartbreaking because he wanted to know, like, what about a real family? And he was just, because Picard had a show face, he was like, no, Starfleet's all I need. And that's devastating. And it wasn't just devastating for him, but he probably felt horrible for his mother, who sacrificed her whole life to protect him. And here's his father, who just went on and became an admiral, and, he's a celebrity and all this stuff, while his mother suffered, right? Because she lost everyone and everything, her career, her friends, her family, all of it. So,
although she did choose to do this. She chose that.
She chose to do that for him. And I think that's where that guilt, though, for him.
Yes.
Like, so I think that's, for him, he was probably all like, he could understand why his mother did it, but she lost everything and he didn't. Right. So that, I think, probably is one of the biggest reasons why Jack was so like, I don't want to know this guy. What did he say to Riker in 17 seconds? I think he said that the bigger the legend, the more disappointing the reality, or something like that. Because he's just like, so it was just all like, everyone loves him, but that doesn't mean he's that great, and he's like, and I've learned that. And and Picard is human, like Riker said. He's like, we're all faulty. We're not perfect, but he's a great man. And, I hope you learn from that. So really good scene. It was a nice, because we only had 10 episodes, but it was really nice to see that bond, because I think the only reason why he joined Picard in those 10 forward scenes in No Win Scenario was to please his mother, because she looked so happy that Picard wanted to at least talk to Jack, and he was just like, I'm going to do this for you, because he loved his mother that much. Now, to go back to the chat real fast. So Sarah said Ed played Jack so well, which I agree. And Ed from My Figure of Universe says, I support anyone named Ed. J. Marie did say, I wasn't originally a fan, but I liked it because I'm not a big fan of every Starfleet kid joining Starfleet. Jake Sisko became a writer. So we were talking about with Wesley. So yeah, it's definitely a, what's that word where it's just like, you're so expecting it or something like that, where, like all the kids become Starfleet cadets and things like that. So it's nice to see something different. Yeah. Can't think of the word, probably because it's my Friday and I'm tired and can't wait for my weekend. So J. Marie did write that Dayton Ward has a new book coming out in February 2026. There's no blurb, but the cover has Wesley, Beverly, Seven, Raffi, and Picard. But where's Jack?
Oh. Ooh.
Dayton, I'm DMing you. I got some questions. I'm having you back on my show. We're going to figure this out. So, that is interesting. Was there anything else, though, that you wish they had done with Jack, or that you hope to see with Jack if we get, like, let's say Star Trek Legacy? I mean, it's a 50-50 shot here, but if we did and we got more Jack, what would you want to see with this character?
I mean, obviously they teased what Q wants with him, what his greater destiny is, transferring that from Jean-Luc to his son. Because as we've pointed out all throughout this chat, every child of Beverly Crusher has some kind of cosmic destiny, some sort of universal stakes that are tied directly to them. And Jack has something to him. But also, the whole idea of Jack being special counselor to Captain Seven and having a spot on the bridge, to me, is really, really intriguing, because, obviously he's just an ensign who gets assigned to the Enterprise because of nepotism. They even made that joke.
I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did. Shout out to Trek Trev, who's just like, I don't want Legacy because I don't want Nepo babies on as part of the series. But I mean, I'm glad they made that joke because it's like, oh, you just killed thousands of people, but let's, start your Starfleet career, just like your father.
Yeah. And in a year, he got through it in a year.
In a year. A fast track where Beverly's like, that's an honor. And he's like, or is it nepotism? Like, Jack ain't dumb. He's like, I know what got me on this fast track. Not just the Picard name, but the Crusher name as well. So yes, exactly.
But there's also like a really fun joke that they made at the end of Picard season 3, right before they launched the Enterprise G, where I think it was Raffi who said like, or it was either Raffi or Jack who said like, I can't believe they gave us the Enterprise. Like we're pirates. Like you're like, we're all rogues. We're all like the least likely people to command the flagship of the Federation. So, and like, that's a great idea for a show. And Jack is probably the most pirate of all of them, given his history and all the crazy stuff he's done that we don't even know about. And he's the special counselor to the captain. So like, what kind of counsel does Seven need from this guy?
Well, what's funny, and this is what, if we did get Legacy or something, what I would love to see is kind of like a brother-sister relationship between Seven and Jack, because she is still part Borg, and he was born a Borg, and she could help him with everything that he went through and everything that he did, and they can kind of help each other, because she did feel a little lost, right, in season 3, because she hated being under Shaw. She hated everything that was happening to her. But there was some things that Jack was saying where she was all like, oh my gosh, you are your son's father, your father's son, right? And it was just really funny because, Jack had those qualities that he didn't realize. And I think sometimes Seven was like, I kind of need this. I need that straightforward kind of stuff, especially from someone I'm not close to, right? And I kind of saw a sister-brotherly bond there, especially with the whole, now they have that connection with the Borg. Yeah,
and Terry Matalas said like he wrote like the first 20 minutes of Legacy. And like one of the things he talked about, he teased, was like there's like he wrote a scene of Seven and Jack getting drunk together, like Spock and Bones. And like to me, that is where all the brother sister, older sister, younger brother Borg stuff can come out. Like I would love to see that scene. It was just the two of them getting smashed, and like two ex-Borgs who are now commanding the Enterprise. Like
I know. And then Raffi, because she was like a spy, a thief, and a pirate or something like that. Which is just like, what's going on? Sarah does say, but does Jack have a medical degree? I don't think he does.
No, I don't think so. I think he's just self-taught, or like he learned from his mom.
Yeah, he learned from his mom. She was the doctor, he was just the helper. Like even when they were saving Shaw's life, she called Jack to come and assist, but he wasn't actually doing any of, pulling out the tricorder or things like that. J. Marie does say, I think the only thing worse than passing on a deadly disease to your child would be passing on the Borg. That just about crushed him. And of course, that's true. Like it's first Picard's all like, oh man, I gave him aromatic syndrome. And now all of a sudden it's like, I made him a Borg, but which also wasn't Picard's fault. So I did like that little tidbit, because that was really the only PTSD kind of storyline that we got, besides stuff that we saw in DS9 and things. But for TNG, that was the only continuity storyline that we saw. So it was definitely it was a definitely cool little twist. I did like that. Sean says, a spy, a pirate, and a thief. Yep, that's it right there. Oh my gosh. But enough about these 3 Crushers. We got a couple of other ones that definitely played a role in all of this. And I mean, I don't want to go as far as saying baby daddies, but let's go ahead and talk about the fathers of these 2 boys. So there they are, Jack R. Crusher, which I believe is for Richard. It is a deleted scene in TNG for family, and he talks about a family member who was named Richard Crusher or something like that. And so that's where his middle name comes from, which I believe is also Wesley's middle name. It's Wesley R. Crusher. Of course, he married Beverly back in 2348, had Wesley in 2349, died when Wesley was 5 in 2354. He was the lieutenant commander of the USS Stargazer and first officer to Picard. He is best friends of Jean-Luc since the academy, so that estimated his age around 45 to 48 years old at death, and also helped raise Wesley until he passed away. But unlike Jack, Jean-Luc Picard did not have that kind of relationship with his son. He had an on and off relationship with Beverly between 2370 and 2380. Beverly had Jack in 2380, but she left before Jack was even born. Picard is a retired admiral of Starfleet and, again, best friends of Jack R. Crusher. He was 96 years old in 2401 and did not get the chance to raise Jack. Now, there's a little footnote on the bottom there was that Picard secretly loved Beverly while she was married to Jack, but kept that a secret for more than 20 years. But Beverly did have an attraction to Picard, and feelings grew after Jack's death. So, wanted to throw that in there real fast because they, of course, played a very important role in these boys' lives. But there's one clip that I wanted to show, and this is actually between Wesley and Picard.
Wesley, it's not true. You're a fine young man.
You don't have to say that, sir. It's pretty obvious how you feel.
Is it? How so?
Everyone knows. You don't like kids. That's too bad. You might have made a good father.
Thank you.
Didn't you ever wish you had kids of your own?
Wishing for a thing does not make it so.
That was in season 2 of TNG, where Beverly was not on the ship at that time, but I wanted to showcase that because it does show that Picard wanted a family, but he didn't feel like either one, he deserved it because of how he grew up. He had a horrible father. His mother died tragically when he was a little boy, or he felt that the only one he wanted to have a family with, he couldn't have, which was Beverly. So, of course, in those first season that we could tell about the looks and things like that between the two, that there was definitely something going on, but kind of drifted off after she got back because of, writing changes, which happens. So it was nice that Terry kind of was like, you know what, this is the only person we could see Picard have a kid with, and that's Beverly Crusher. But let's make it tragic. Let's make it hard because, season 2 was about all the stuff that he went through with his father and his mother and the pain of his past. And when, Beverly and Picard confronted each other in 17 Seconds, she mentioned how she was like, you didn't want to have kids because you were afraid about what you might have become. And not that she didn't think that he would have been a good father, but I think she just feared that he felt that he wouldn't have been good enough. And then she also feared that he would just use his career as an excuse, right? Like, I'm too busy. I'm not going to be there. And of course, he was very blind about the danger. Like, he was attacked constantly. And he just kept going like, oh, that's part of the job. And she's like, no, there's a time and place that you have to take a step back. And if he wasn't going to do it for her, she definitely didn't want their son to be a target. So it's a tragic story.
Yeah.
That they did not get this life together.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments with all of that?
Oh yeah. I mean, that clip you showed, like, it's striking how different and how like closed off Picard was in that scene. That was season 2 scene, like in those early seasons, especially, when the subject of having a family came up. And yes, over the years, they've been able to fill in the rationales of his past and his family and his own upbringing and why. And, Picard season 2 was about directly confronting in a weird roundabout way involving Q and time travel and all this stuff, but it was directly about Picard confronting whatever it was in his past that made him decide that for the next 70 years of his life, he was going to be alone, and why he made that decision. And then he comes out of it at the end, thanks to Q and what all the things that transpired that opened him up to the idea that, yeah, you know what, I could even at this late stage in life where I'm an android, I could have a family. So
just a little tidbit there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I completely forgot your question now, but
No, I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because he did, when he lost Beverly, you know, all this stuff was happening with the Romulan relocation and everything. Beverly's gone. He has no idea what had happened. He thinks like, oh my gosh, I screwed it up. And he felt like, I got to dive myself into work, right? And then all of a sudden the androids attack. They get pulled. He tries to say, well, it's my career or this, and he ends up getting stripped his career. And he's like, I'm done. They called his bluff. And the thing is, he's like, I'm done. I lost the woman I loved. I lost my career. There's nothing to live for. I have no children. And so in his mind, there was really, and he even said that to Jack, I just went home to die. Like, that was it. Just went home to die. It's going to die alone and never have what I always wanted, because he was either too scared, because, you know, like I said, on and off relationship with Beverly. It was like 5 times, they said, back and forth. And it was just because he didn't know how to hang on to it. He didn't realize the mistakes he was making. Now, I'm not saying Beverly didn't make mistakes, but because she's a mother, because she already lost Wesley, she just couldn't lose Jack. And so unfortunately, they had just all this baggage that they never really was able to figure out. And it was just too rough, and it's just so sad. Now, Sarah, of course, says Jean-Luc only wanted to have children with one woman, and she was already taken. Yep, you just said that. Or he felt like he wasn't good enough for her, and could also be true. You know, he did have that guilt of having feelings for her because Jack was his best friend. And, you know, I loved the little stories of him telling Jack the son about him and Jack and being best friends. And he's all like, you know, because Jack was all like, it's a little weird that my mother named me after her dead husband. He's like, no, I probably would have named you the same thing, because he loved Jack like a brother. Jack R. Crusher was the brother he never had. And he was partly responsible for his death, of whatever reason, whether he sent him off on a mission or whatever happened. There was an accident. Picard felt that guilt. Picard held on to that. And that was partly why, like Sarah says here, he probably didn't feel like he was good enough for her, because he inadvertently, accidentally, whatever you want to call it, killed her husband, right? Yeah. And that was his best friend. That was someone that they absolutely loved. They both loved Jack. And to honor his memory would to be naming their son after him, because this Jack would not have been possible without Jack R. Crusher.
Right.
And J. Marie says Seven and Jack have a bond, and Starfleet was trying to replace people, and JL's Borg self caused a lot of that. A 3/4 and is an ex-Borg. Yeah. So a lot of things that they both had to go through, especially Seven and everything. So it's always good to see that, you know, the end of Picard season 3 of just them being like, we're free. Like, we can live. Like, we've done our job. We're good. They're drinking at the bar. You know, Beverly is throwing back blood wine like it's no tomorrow. It looks so good to see her just be like, I'm free. I'm with my family again. You know, Picard and her, whether they have a relationship or not, but they were a family, whether they were a couple. They had their son. Like, this was something that they had probably always dreamed about, and now it was finally coming true. So, you know, I did do, my last episode was about All Good Things, and I had mentioned about Q, and I know you had mentioned about Q earlier. And, you know, in season 2, Q was supposed to be dying. Well, then in season 3, we see Q is back. And I thought of the concept that I think the Q did die, in the sense of that chapter he had with Picard was over. That Q is gone, but this new Q with Jack's journey is what's next. And this is the new Q, right? That this is now, he's all like, that is over. I am done with your father, like all that, and saving humanity. And now it's your turn, because he feels that the Picard line is special, even though him and Beverly don't have a good relationship. He's definitely going to have fun with Jack. I'm sure Beverly was pissed when Jack told him, he's like, yeah, Q showed up. And she's like, excuse me. What? What's going on here? So before I jump into my sick bay spinner, which is going to tell me my next episode, is there any last thoughts that you have of these Crusher and fathers of the children?
It's great to actually go through this whole process of reminiscing and talking about like how important all three Crushers are to the scope of Star Trek, especially in the 24th century. Beverly is, all told, now that we've seen the full scope of her story, like an incredibly remarkable character, an inspirational character, somebody who is really, really admirable, to the point where she is now literally an admiral. And then her two sons, who both protect the universe in different ways. It's like if that wasn't the original concept or the original idea when these characters were created way back when in 1987 for the first two, for Wesley and Beverly, how it turned out is amazing. It's a grand story of this incredibly important family that just resonates throughout Star Trek, and it's awesome. So this is really a lot of fun just to kind of give them their props, because the Crushers are awesome.
The Crushers crush it every time.
The Crushers crush it 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, I have my Crusher. I have a lot of designs on my TeePublic store and stuff, and I wanted to keep it simple, but my shirt basically says Crusher, and it just says Beverly, Wesley, Jack. There they are. There's the Crushers. And I heard that, because all 3 of the actors were on the cruise, they got to do little skits and stuff, and it was hilarious and lovely. And of course, Todd Stashwick jumped in and was like, I'm an honorary Crusher, and I agree. So So I'm going to go ahead and find out what my next episode's going to be. All right, guys, my next live on October 17th is going to be The Inner Fight, which was season 4 of Lower Decks. A great episode, a really great Mariner episode, so I'm super excited. And I'm going to have special guest Emmett. He reached out to me on Blue Sky, and he was like, hey, I would love to join on this date. I was like, let's go for it. And so, yeah, Emmett, you got a Lower Decks episode. Congratulations.
and it's also tied to Wesley Crusher.
And it's tied to Wesley Crusher. So perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Gotta love it. It's perfect to have it right after this.
Yeah. We should shout that out, by the way. Will appeared on Picard. He appeared on Lower Decks, and he appeared on Prodigy, which is pretty amazing.
I love it. And Will deserves it. Will totally deserves it. Like you were saying, he got so much crap from TNG and from people and stuff like that as a teenager. And I know personally in his life, he went through even worse. And to see how everyone we want Wesley and was so happy to see Wesley and with Will. I mean, I jumped up. When I saw him in Prodigy, I screamed, I jumped. It was like my team won the Super Bowl. I was so stoked. And yeah, he totally deserves it. He gets so much love. And I'm so happy that he gets that. So, but let's go ahead and jump into my redhead alert. All right, guys, Beverly Crusher Day is right around the corner on October 13th. I will be celebrating our favorite dancing doctor by talking about the top 10 moments that best showcase her legacy. I will have Bevhead and writer Ryan Thomas Riddle as my special guest, so join us in the chat and let's gush about Beverly Crusher and Gates McFadden, and that will be on October 13th, okay? Also, it is still giveaway time over at Crusher Convo. Once I get to 1,000 followers on Instagram, so I could please do lives again, and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I will be giving away an autograph of Gates McFadden to a very special listener. Please spread the word and share my content to help me reach my goal. And it is this photo that I took of her in the TNG reunion at STLV in 2023, and she signed it in this last STLV. So yeah, please help me out and get me to my goal. Don't forget that you could submit a penny for your thought by recording off crusherconvo.com a 60 to 90 second clip, or you can email me or even write a comment in any of my socials, or you could write to me at crusherconvo@gmail.com, and I will announce your penny live on the air. Last but not least, my Patreon shoutouts go to Leslie and Dave, who are my Commander patrons, and Chuck and Engineer Mark, who are my Admiral patrons. If you would like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive extra content, just head over to patreon.com/crusherconvo, and you could sign up for as low as $3 a month. All right, John, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Please let my listeners know where they can find you.
Oh, thank you so much. This is really great. So on my socials, which is Threads and Instagram and Blue Sky mainly, I'm at Back of the Head, and you can find my stuff at screenrant.com. If it's Star Trek, odds are I wrote it. Odds are. I mean, we have other writers as well, but it's probably going to be me. So.
I love it. Love your articles. Always get excited when you get to interview somebody. I know you've done a few recently with Strange New Worlds and stuff, so that's been great. But yeah, such an honor to meet you and for you to join me. Real fast, my cousin says, "Will Witten is the best." Absolutely, and Sarah agrees 100%. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining and letting us talk about the Crushers. I will be here in 2 weeks to talk about the Inner Fight, but I would also be here on October 13th to talk about Beverly Crusher Day. So yeah, thank you so much. Live long and prosper. Have a good night, guys. Bye.
Crusher out.
Yeah.